All right, let's dive into the early medieval era of Indian history. Now, if you're picturing some kind of dark age between the big famous empires, think again. This was a really dynamic time, full of political shakeups, constant struggles for power, and some absolutely incredible cultural developments that honestly shaped the India we see today.
So let's start with a big question. What actually happens when a huge, unifying empire just falls apart? Well, in India, the centuries after Harsha's empire collapsed give us a pretty spectacular answer. It wasn't chaos, not at all. It was the birth of a whole new political world. So historians look at this period, from around the 8th to the 13th century, as this super important time of transition. The old way of doing things, with one single empire calling all the shots, was gone. Instead, the whole subcontinent was filled with these powerful, ambitious regional kingdoms, and every single one of them wanted to be on top. And believe me, nowhere was that struggle for power more intense than in North India. For hundreds of years, the region was basically a battleground for a massive three-way tug-of-war that would decide the fate of the entire subcontinent. Okay, so the focal point of this entire conflict was one city, Kannauj. Now, why Kannauj? Simple. If you controlled Kannauj, you controlled the unbelievably rich and fertile Ganga Valley. It was the ultimate prize, the symbol of imperial power, and three massive empires were about to spend generations fighting over it. So, who were the main players in this tripartite struggle? Well, first up, in the east, you have the Palas of Bengal. They were huge supporters of Buddhism and built famous universities. Then, over in the west, you had the Gurjara Pratiharas, who were like a giant wall holding back Arab invasions. And coming up from the Deccan, the super powerful Rashtrakutas, who kind of acted as a bridge between the north and south and weren't afraid to jump into northern politics when it suited them.
And listen, this wasn't some quick war. This struggle for Kannauj dragged on for over 100 years. The power shifted back and forth constantly, with each empire having its moment in the sun. But in the long run, the endless fighting just completely exhausted all three of them, which of course set the stage for something totally new.
So, what happens when these huge empires finally fade away? Well, they didn't leave a power vacuum. Not at all. Instead, this vibrant mosaic, this rainbow of smaller but still really powerful kingdoms popped up all across India. It created this incredibly rich and diverse political map. Up in the north, you had dynasties like the Chandalas, the architectural geniuses who gave us the absolutely stunning temples of Khajuraho. You had the Parmararas of Malwa, famous for brainy kings like the legendary Raja Bhoj. And of course, the Chauhans of Ajmer, and their most famous ruler, Prithviraj III, is someone you'll definitely want to remember. He plays a huge part at the end of this story.
And the scene was just as lively down in the Deccan in the south. You had the Chalukyas of Kalyani who took over from the Rashtrakutas. The Kakatiyas were known for having powerful female rulers like Queen Rudramadevi. And way down in the far south, the Cholas were rising. They were about to become the biggest, most dominant military and naval power in the entire Indian Ocean.
Now this brings up a really interesting question. With all these different kingdoms, all this political division, was there anything that actually held the subcontinent together? Well, yeah. Despite all the fighting, there were these powerful shared ideas about art, religion, and even how to run a government. To really get a handle on this, we're going to take a closer look at the Cholas.
And this is where things get really sophisticated. See, the Cholas weren't just amazing conquerors. They were master administrators. They built this highly organized state that's pretty much a masterclass in how to govern in medieval India. Just look at this structure. The Chola Empire was organized with incredible precision. You start with the big provinces, the mandalams. Those were divided into Vala Nadus, which were then broken down into districts called Nadus, all the way down to the basic unit, the Kuram, which was a group of villages. It created this perfectly clear chain of command and made it possible to run a huge territory efficiently. But the truly amazing part? Their system of local government. Down at the village level, you had two kinds of assemblies. The Or was for everybody, a general meeting of all the local landowners. But in some villages, you had the Sabha, a much more complex council that ran things through a whole system of committees for everything from water management to local justice.
And how do we know all this? Well, we have concrete proof, like the famous Uttara Maru inscription. It's incredible. It lays out the exact rules for how committee members were chosen. What qualified you, what disqualified you, even a lottery system to make it fair. It just shows an unbelievably advanced and systematic way of thinking about governance.
But it wasn't all just about government and rules. The cultural legacy the Cholas left behind is just wow. Rajaraja I built the magnificent Brihadisvara Temple, an absolute marvel of architecture. Their bronze statues, especially the iconic Nataraja, the dancing Shiva, are famous all over the world. And they were huge supporters of literature, leading to a golden age of Tamil writing.
But you know how history goes. This vibrant world of powerful, competing regional kingdoms, it wasn't going to last forever. As the 12th century started to wrap up, new forces were gathering up in the northwest, and they were about to change the map of India once again. The real turning point came with the invasions of the Ghurids from Afghanistan. In the year 1192, at the Second Battle of Tarain, the army of Muhammad Ghori defeated the forces of the Chauhan king Prithviraj III. And this victory, it didn't just topple one kingdom. It kicked the door wide open for a completely new kind of power to be established in India.
And nothing shows this change more powerfully than this. This is the Qutb Minar in Delhi. Its construction started right after the Ghurid victory, and it stands as a symbol of the new Delhi Sultanate. It marks the end of this early medieval period and the beginning of a whole new era of centralized Turco-Persian power in North India.
So we'll leave you with this to think about. That era of regional kingdoms might be over, but its legacy is absolutely everywhere. The incredible art and architecture, the way regional languages and literature developed, the very roots of so many of India's distinct regional identities, all of it was forged in this dynamic, chaotic, and creative period. In so many ways, the India of today is still shaped by the world these medieval kingdoms built.